Good evening and welcome to Sheetalnath Conversations, yet another Sunday evening 7 p.m. IST show. I hope you're all enjoying this 59-week sojourn, this civilizational joyride with me and with the, galaxy of bright and eminent minds of our times. I sometimes feel that it's like a joy driving out of when we plunge into a gigantic ocean, a mysterious ocean, a bountiful ocean of anecdotes drawn from the these wonderful, enchanting, enthralling, experiential conversations. So that is how it is, and I think it has been we more than 58 episodes, 15 landmarks we have passed by, and all the programs are very overwhelmingly responded by the our diaspora and the general people across the globe, as well as seekers and researchers. uh, I think that it has been almost by and large we have been able to crisscross through these wonderful, enchanting stories, enchanting pool of stories, covering almost, encompassing almost everything, ranging from the the legends, ancient legends, men and matters, cultures, traditions, celebrations, festivals, streets, hamlets, towns, cliffs, and the gods, saints and the preachers, eminent teachers, eminent legends, diaspora, entire diaspora, and there is bonhomie, as well as the brotherhood, the castles, the monarchs, the generals, the warriors, the all great legends from this wonderful land, which is crown, cathedral, and cradle of Indian civilization, the beautiful valley of Kashmir. We have been probably it is more than one year and some weeks, and I'm finding this very overwhelming response, and I feel very grateful for all of you. And once again, I reciprocate. I response to the all wonderful people, all the wonderful spectators of this program who are into the admiration and following this wonderful program. I'm indebted to them. I'm grateful to them, and with ample affection and regards, once again I welcome them all. Welcome rather all of you into our 59th historic show. Teacher and teaching is synonymous in the evolution of the modern times. Even I can say it was there since the ancient times. The teachers and their exposition to the field of teaching has always been the foremost pursuit of human beings, humankinds. It has been the foremost endeavor of the humankinds. Kashmir, the people, present people of Kashmir, irrespective of whatever their cultural variations are, one thing is very fact and very real, that our ancestors had been the formidable teachers from the time immemorially. Uh, we can see the greatest legends. Today's topic is not all about that. We have been speaking about those aspects as well. But we have seen the Kashmir was always the seat of music, literature, art, and everything. And we had the Sharda University there, where people from across the world, from Malaysia, from the Far East, from the Central Asia, from Mongolia, from China, from Iran, from Mesopotamian civilization, from all the and from rest of the India. Students came in thousands and thousands in number, and they were taught the ancient sciences. They were taught the ancient literature, musicology, and economics, and architecture, as well as aesthetics, dramaturgy. All these aspects were taught them, and they went back to their homes in the rest part of the world, and they then tried to assimilate it with their own cultures. So that is how the greatness of this Kashmir, the seat of music and seat of learning, has always been. If we take a glance at the bygone times and the bygone century, just a century back, you could see, you know, we are all witness to the great, wonderful, brilliant, genius brains who were the educators, and who had a very, very distinctive style, distinctive way of teaching, distinctive way of making students and alumni understand. They were at the zenith of their innovations. They were at the zenith of their innovation. They had the great style, great presentation, and their interaction levels was much superior and much refined. Today, when we see the modern model of this teaching is changing, the paradigm is changing across the globe, and then when we reflect back, we understand that somewhere down the line, our teachers were much ahead, many decades, much before they had all started all these structural changes in the paradigm of the conventional teaching styles. So today we are having a very historic conversation, one of the great conversation about this amazing uh, and astounding shades of one of the finest and one of the legendary personalities of the contemporary times, an ornithologist, reputed ornithologist, a scholar, author, an invincible encyclopedia, the most reputed and respectable educationist, Master Samsarchand Kaul. Uh, it is said that he was the one of the most first and the foremost pioneer, bird watcher with an international reputation, and he was given the honorarium. He was given the honor by the as a world watcher by the World Watcher Association, based on England, and known very fondly as the Samkak by his colleagues and the contemporary folks. He has been imparting education in the CMS school for last 6.5 decades. For the 6.5 decades, it is a very marathon and a very long time space as far as the profession is concerned. And his methodology of teaching has always been analytical and objective. It has always been practical. It is said, what I have heard from gathered from the sources about this great man, that he used to take his people and students in the excursions and expeditions, and during the camps he used to take them and make them to realize and understand the this environmental science with a stark one-to-one and open understanding and open encounter with this nature. He is always It is said that he has always told his students to observe the trees, observe the leaves, observe this fossils, sedimentation of the rocks, as well as observe these birds, their species, their colors, and the plants as well. Such a wonderful human being, such a wonderful personality, who was there in our backyards in the last century. And it is said that he was a very close friend of Vikram Sarabhai, and he had an interaction with Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, and he has also traveled from Burma to Calcutta. He was a traveler as well, and Mahesh Yogi ji and many other people. He was the most prestigious, honored member of many prestigious organizations of the world level, and it is being said that he was a voracious reader. He had a great big library in his home with the 5,000 valuable, profound, knowledgeable books. His contribution as a scholar author is unparalleled, especially to the sciences of environmental sciences as well as Kashmir geography. This unparalleled, and this is marked with his honesty and originality. I think the rest in the later years, rest of the people, when they started studying these two particular segments of environmental sciences vis-a-vis Kashmir, his books became the reference points. And his books, there are it is around 10 books, 10 famous books he has written, and he has written hundreds of articles in one of the most prestigious journals and prestigious papers, across the India as well as the globe. His books like the Beautiful Valley of Kashmir and Ladakh, the Srinagar and its environs, Pahalgam and its environs, Birds of Kashmir, and the Sacred Temple of Shankaracharya, as well as his his book for the books for the students, young students, that was about the flowers, birds, and butterflies. And there are some of the books I have mentioned here. Such was his great personality. It is said that his students, they became the very very eminent public figures, and two ex-chief ministers like GM Sadiq and Bakshi Ghulam Ahmad were his students. And Dr. Nasir, one of the most eminent doctor, one of the most eminent physician of Kashmir, was also his student, valuable student, and he was respected across the races, across the religions, across the colors, because he's a very distinguished personality. He was. It is said that he was an ace swimmer, who once upon a time it is said that Buller used to be considered one of the largest lake of Asia, but now it is totally gone. It is totally. It is squeezed up. But in those days, crossing Buller was not an ordinary thing. He was a Buller crosser, and he has crossed the Dal. And it is said that he was a wonderful trekker. He who had almost, scaled all the greatest peaks, Himalayan peaks, in the periphery of Kashmir. Such a wonderful personality. It is also said that this Salman Ali, one of the this one of the greatest this ornithologist of the contemporary times and a naturalist of the contemporary times. You know, he whenever he used to come to Kashmir, he used to definitely pay a visit to Master Samsarchand Kaul, to interact with him, to pay obeisance to his senior, the first bird watcher of Kashmir, Dr. Master Samsarchand Kaul. There are many many stories. He is a phenomenon personality. All our youngsters watching across the globe must really understand how enriched are we that we have such a wonderful legacy, such a wonderful ancestors. Today, to amble and crisscross around and visit to the shades of this great phenomenon, great personality, great institution, invincible encyclopedia, we have with us his proud grandson, Sri Utpal Kaulji. Sri Utpal Kaulji doesn't need any introduction. He is a very, very formidable voice of Kashmiri Pandits. He is the international coordinator of Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora, and he is also, one of the this, what do you call it, brand ambassador of Indian tourism. He's basically a publisher with a very eminent publishing house, Utpal Publications, and his contribution to the Kashmiri literature is more than 100 books on Kashmir's history, past history, ancient history, and present history. He has published through his publications. He's a wonderful human being, and we are very glad that he's with us. And I would really love that I would like to just vanish from the scene and make you and him to interact with each other. And let us welcome to the studio uh, Utpal Kaulji with great and warm greetings.
Thank you very
Utpalji,
much.
welcome to the 59th Shitalath Conversation Show.
Thank you very much, Jugal Kaulji. It's a great honor, and it's a great honor to my grandfather. He is my grandfather, but he is ambassador of India in all over the world. He is a legendary figure, and so present generation doesn't know much about him. That in Kashmir, we had a
Thank you.
person who was conscious of environment. He was conscious. He was first person to talk about pollution some 80
Oh,
years back. So you have given this opportunity, and it's a good luck once again. I thank you very much to me, and thank you very much. And my grandfather's soul will be today very happy because he wanted that his positive work should people must understand and know and take care of this world, this globe.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much, Utpalji. It's a great pleasure to have you on our show. Certainly, I think this is going to be a very experiential, very enriching show, knowing about this great institution of Kashmir, the great son of the soil, Master Samsarchand Kaul. And before we amble further, we have a very, kind of a structure, a formalized structure of this program, Shikal of Conversations. In our first segment, we ask visitor to just visit through his reminiscences, especially about the Kashmir scene in his earlier times, in his younger ages, especially the school time, college time, the streets, the people, the social cultural ecology of those times, and the festivals and the traditions and the institutions where he studied, and the inspirations, things and people who have inspired you, the water bodies, landscape. So let's all swim with you through the base of your childhood. Please elucidate.
Thank you very much. My name is Utpal Kaul, and I was born in 1956 in Motiyar, Ranawari, Srinagar, Kashmir. And it is very interesting that I was born in an island.
Oh,
Motiyar, Panditpora is an island, and we were like 20 houses, and around was backwaters of Dal Lake.
oh,
So
beautiful.
if you had to come to see us, you had to cross small bridge. And during my childhood, small boats would go around our this small island, which was known in Motiyar as Panditpora. So that was my childhood where I was born, and I remember that. First, very important aspect, which I still remember, I think I was 6 years old, was the Chinese War in 1962. I still remember that was a big event. Big, something was big, which I think that was very, very something different. But I went to
Yes.
school. The school was in Ranavari, and it is known as Devi Ranavari. And Devi Ranavari was unique school in the sense that we had two schools. The primary branch was in Jogi Lankar, and the bigger high school was again on the bank of uh, backwaters of lake. It was a route going from Nehru Park from Dal Lake to Nagin Lake, and our school was on the bank of this water body. And so there were these boats going, coming and going for 12 hours, and foreigners and visitors would go from Dal Lake to Nagin Lake via this Mar Canal. We can
Oh,
call
that's
it a
beautiful.
Mar Canal. It was so beautiful. It was, and on the banks of Mar Canal, like Venice, there were markets. There were so many some touristic shops, and but some real provision shops or bakery shops, which we call as kandur, or so many wood carving showrooms, shawl showrooms. These were all along from Nehru Park up till Navidyar. So that was the Ranavari where I was born. It is basically it is like Jaffna Peninsula. It is
Ah,
was- one third of it is on the bank of water, on the bank of Dal Lake, or you can say on the bank of Mar Canal. So it was so interesting that I don't think in Ranavari there is any male or female who doesn't know swimming. So I was only, I can say, I was 7 or 8 years old when my elder brother Surendra Kaul, my grandfather told him that he must be a swimmer, because my elder brother Surendra Kaul was a very, very good swimmer. And
Oh,
it was in our genes. My grandfather was a great swimmer, my father, my uncle, and it will be interesting for you to know all our sisters are very good swimmers.
all right.
So it was something different, uh, because another important thing was that we had the temple, and this temple is known as Vitala Bhairav temple. What I'm saying, and everybody was during the summer. That means from April to October, early in the morning, all youngsters or all male would go and swim and sometimes we could go for 3 times a day coming from school or in the evening also during summer. So
Wow.
everybody was a very very good swimmer in our area in Ranavari. But one more thing that was extra, that in this Vitala Barrack, it was not a simple temple. It was a big social platform, and we had a theater there. And this
Very good.
theater was known as Vitala Bhairav Kala Mandir.
Ah.
So, Jugalji, you will be happy to know that I have acted more than 100 times on theater,
Array,
and
wonderful, wonderful.
and
That's a great
of
news.
hundreds of people were watching this. Not only from Ranavari, people from Nawa Bazar, people from downtown were coming in, booking whole bus and coming to see the show. And this show would start on Janam Ashtami and it will go for 1 month. That means full of August or up till middle of September, we were having nearly 20 shows. And it was Krishna Janam, and then Haba Khatun. It was a
Baka.
famous Haba Khatun drama we were acting. And then Raja Harishchandra, Samaj Ko Badal Dalo. So many these dramas we have organized there or done. And I think those days it was very difficult to get the lady artist. So I
Yes.
must have done more than 50, 60 times I have become lady, a young girl. And I think I did my shaving when I was only 14-year-old, because I had to act in the be my part was to be the friend of Haba Khatun.
Oh,
So that was one with the attached with Vetala Bhairav thing. And
that's
so
good. Wonderful.
I tell you one thing: there were so many good artists. If the exposure would have been, they may have gone to the Bollywood. If it would be present a situation like that, that there is a lot of exposure, that they
Yes.
were really really great artists. Then in our area we had one saint, Swami Jivan Sahab. Swami Jivan Sahab was for everyone. He was like a god, and he lived in during Afghan times. But people had so much of trust. It was like a living god for all of us. So nearly we can say 500 to 1,000 families were attached to it and had full faith on one side Vitala Bhairav and on the other side Jivan Sahab. So
Great.
uh, this was where I was born, and what I have seen during my childhood. But school was very very interesting.
Yes.
We had very good teachers, great teachers, and it was by Whisker. I normally I had to go to study in Biscu school, but all of a sudden, what as a child, I why I say I will not go to Biscu school, I will go to Davis school. And even my parents, everybody was amazed. He doesn't know what is Davis school, but still he is insisting that I will not go to Lal Chowk, I will study in Ranavari. So I went to Devi Ranavari. As I said earlier, that Devi Ranavari was till fifth standard in Jogi Langar, and then when I was in sixth class, I moved to the bigger school, and this school was like Shanti Niketan,
Oh,
and huge, big pears trees, huge, big pears trees. Uh, uh, then we had huge trees of Queen's apple, bamsut, which we call in
Bumsu.
Kashmiri bamsut. And it was a huge place. It was like a football ground there. And I got, because of my good swimming, I got a chance only in sixth class to be go in the boating. So we every year we had 1 week to 10 days regatta in Dal Lake, in main Dal Lake. So
Correct.
I was the only one student who was in sixth class. Otherwise, it was ninth, 10th, 11th class students, and we were going every Saturday for practice for 3 months. Practice how to make fast boating, and it was a racing, and we sometimes were getting some awards also, some trophy also, and then
That's
we
so
also
wonderful.
got trained. Yes, we also got training for swimming, how to jump, how to have backstroke, how to have butterfly swimming, and this was the training we were getting from. There was someone from the government who was a physical teacher who was attached to the swimming department. And so there were schools like Biscu School, only 10, 15 schools were interested in the aquatics, in water sports. So, so that was my other experience. And the greatest day of my life was when it was Dull Cross. In school, it was announced that there will be a Dull Cross, and I think all the senior students of ninth, 10th, and 11th. And I told my grandfather, our school is organizing Dull Cross, and he said you have to go for dull cross. And then my he told my brother, take him and make him to swim, first day half an hour, second day 35 minutes, then 40 minutes, and make it sure he will continuously swim for 1 hour, 2 hours, so that he is strong, and he will become confident to cross the dull. But now the interesting part of the story was that my mother told her mother, that means my grandmother's mother, my grandmother, that Utpal is going for Dalcross. And so my mother thought it is dangerous. He is young, he is only in seventh class, it is dangerous. So
How
my
will you swim?
grandmother came secretly to our home and told me, I will give you 10 rupees. So don't cross the Dal. You don't cross the dull, I will give you 10 rupees. I don't know how my grandfather came to know this, and my grandfather called me and he said, do you know I have kept 20 rupees award for you when you come in the evening to cross the dull. And I have told them that all this week you will get a fried meat in ghee, so that you are strong. You have to swim. Be confident. You have to swim. And it was very good luck that I
Wonderful.
was the youngest one. I was the youngest one to cross the Dal. Uh, I think it was 1968,
Why?
and I was 13-year old. I was 13, and I still remember that 10th class students, they swim for half a kilometer and then they came back. They
I
said,
know
"Oh,
it is very difficult to swim in dull still water rather than moving water. Moving water, Habakadal mein to easy tha because water was moving in one direction. But in dull, swimming was very difficult because it was stand still water. You know, it needs a lot
and
of energy. Yeah.
and it is because of this I still swim. We have a swimming pool, and my
Arey,
first interest
okay.
still is swimming. And so it was quite interesting to swim. And
Upalji,
I think,
now I think we will now because it's a beautiful story. We will have one particular session for this. Your entire
okay.
Ranavari and all that, because now we'll move to this is a very ever your all narrative is so beautiful that it is very engrossing. But let's come to the main subject today, and that is about your wonderful, the legendary grandfather. So first of all, I'd like to tell your illustrious grandfather was a multifaceted personality. He was a guide and inspiration for lot many people, maybe the bird watchers, environmentalists, people in general, students. Let us begin with this entire program. Let's start this program. Let's begin with you, with your perspective as a child and growing up years till you saw your grandfather. We'll talk about his other glorious things about his bird watching later. First of all, how was his personality? I mean, how did he spend his time? How was his behavior? How was his discipline? What did he do? How was his interaction? And what did inspire you as a young man, as a stu as a during your infancy days and as a teenage days? What did father How did he guide you? Let us know about this inner personality from a very close person, grandson of Samsarchand Kaul.
Thank you very much, Jugalji. Let me tell you, first of all, my grandfather's physical personality. He was 6 feet tall, and his he has not purchased shoe here in I can say in Kashmir or in any part of India. He was always getting it from New Zealand or from Australia because
Arey,
his
wow.
foot was 13, 30. It was size was 13. There was no size 13. So he had big hands and big foot. It was a huge foot. And when this shoe was, I had to take it for repairing the shoe. The children would call me houseboat, because the shoe was big. So he was a very robust. He was, as I said, he was a
Tall.
swimmer. He was soft, but he was like a wrestler. He was a very strong person. So physically, he was very strong, and but heart, he was like a baby. He was like a child. He was
Oh,
he was so emotional. I have never seen my grandfather raising the voice. And it was interesting that even it was such a beautiful combination between my grandfather and grandmother. Both were extraordinary people. My grandmother never said anything against, because ladies are talking extra sometimes, and so
yeah.
they will say something here and there. My grandmother was calm, and my grandmother was the real advisor of my grandfather.
Arey, wow.
My grandfather would always take advice from him. And
Her name was
the
Lachkuj
Lachkuj,
was her
Lachkuj,
name.
Lachkuj.
Kakni, yeah.
We would call her Kakini. And for, as you said earlier, for rest of the world, Master Samsarchand Kaul. For his friends, he was Samakak. But for at home, he was Bab. For relations and for he was Bab. And Bab was the elder brother in the family, in our Kaul clan. My grandfather, my great grandfather was Narayan Kaul, and we were basically from Zanakadal.
Janak.
Zanakadal. But Narayan Kaul built separate house for my grandfather in Ranavari. He must have been a well-off person. He was a revenue officer. So four brothers were living in Zanakadal, but the elder brother was living. But the love and affection was so much that he always performed his duty as an elder brother. I have seen my grandfather, and as a child, as a small child, 7, 8 year old, I have that impression that I got the impression that my grandfather is something very special person, because he was the only person whenever some foreigner would come to Ranavari, whether he would come from Surating, whether he would come from, in a taxi or on foot, everybody knows he has to go and meet Master Samsarchand Kaul, because they would come with cameras, they would come with some equipments,
Gadgets.
talk to him and interview him or something like that. And then we were amazed that they are not going to anybody's house. They are going to, they will come and they will sit and in rapid attention, they would listen to him, and then he would talk about Himalaya, he would talk about birds, he would talk about Kashmir and things like that. I was so young, I could not understand fully what he was saying. But by the time I came in senior class in school, and I understood the value. And I have to tell you, I was in 10th class, and one boy who was our neighbor, he came rushing to me. He said, Utpalji, Babu's name is in our textbook. It was
Oh,
amazing. It was an English book in 7th class. I think it was year 68 or 69, that there was a chapter, birds. Chapter was in English, birds. And in the birds, it was a conversation between grandfather and the grandson. And grandfather is telling about birds in Kashmir to his grandchild. And grandchild asks the grandfather, "You have told me so beautifully about birds, but how come you know?" He said, "My friend is Master Samsarchand Kaul. He is a great bird
oh,
watcher. And
so good.
because of his lectures, I am telling you, and he has written Birds of Kashmir. And sometimes you must listen when he goes to radio, because those days there was no television. So he was giving talks to children and telling
Yeah,
them about birds. And so it was
he was a
like that.
disciplinarian person. He rose early.
Jugalji, I have to tell you that I will tell you his daily routine.
Yes.
His wake up call was at 3:30 or
Oh,
3:45, and then he would go straightway to Vital Barrow and to take shower. And he would take shower whether temperature was 25 or 35 degrees or minus 10 degrees. It doesn't
right.
matter. Minus 10 degrees. And I have seen him breaking the ice because it was
Fulkatat.
frozen,
Fulkatat.
everything was frozen. He would take mug or something and have the shower. I don't know. There was no day he has not taken the shower. After taking the shower, he would go straightway to Hari Parvat.
Ah,
So
Preshwari.
by I think by 6:30 he would come back. And after coming back from Hari Parvat, he would go to Thokurkut, his puja room, and do the daily routine puja. This puja will finish at 7:30. Say 1 hour there, 7:30. At 7:30, he would have a glass of milk or दूध का एक गिलास जिसको आप बोलेंगे वो
Milk.
गिलास. At 8:30, he would have his meal, hawk and butter. Well, very simple. Simple. This was in every family. He would have, or whatever is prepared at 8:30. At quarter to 9 or at 9:15, he would leave for school. Daily, it was a daily. And I have to tell you that he was always well dressed. He was always,
Immaculate.
every coat or pant or whatever, it was steel press. It was very not untidy. He would not like untidy people. So turban and suit or overcoat in the winter. And he didn't also like the if somebody put the muffler like that and was moving. No, you'd say no muffler, just move, walk fast, you will get heat. So his personality was what he said he did himself. He was not just giving the lectures. He was applying everything to his own self. But the most important thing I have to tell you and to the world and to this generation, that he had no time to waste. He had no time to waste. Everything was so disciplined. He would come back from school. He would reach at 5:30. Then he would take rest for 15 minutes, 15 to
Only.
20 minutes. We call it Baban Shitrobat Lambas. Lambas. He was relaxing for 15 to 20 minutes. Then after 20 minutes, he would have some tea or some snacks or whatever, and then he would start reading. And then it was a serious reading. I remember his books. He was reading our universe, our galaxies, about, and he had so much of understanding. He would take us on balcony and tell us, "You see, this is Jupiter, this is
Oh,
Mars, this
why?
is Great Bear, this is so." He was giving us lecture on these stars and universe, and trying to explain us there are different galaxies, there are billion galaxies, and something sometimes it was
Milky Way,
too much,
Andromeda.
too much to us, but such a harmonious person, such no conflict with anyone. He had never conflict with anyone. So he had no enemy. He had no enemy. He had only friends and followers. Friends and followers across the Kashmir. There was no question of Hindu. There was no question of Muslim. There
These
was
things
no
were not
question
there
of Christian,
in
or
those
there was
times.
those. There was nothing like that. And so for him was student. And one thing I have to add here, that he had a strong belief that education should not be commercialized. So I remember he was telling me, if somebody will ask you to give tuition, don't ask him to pay money. I can give you money. And because he has never taken money, if somebody would come for private tuition, he was so busy, but some students were coming. We want, please tell us about geography, tell us about English, tell us. He would say, yeah, sit down. And once I give you one instance, director education was Mr. GM Dar. He was director education, and I cannot say whether it was director education, Dr. Noordin or Dar. And he came and said, "My daughter is doing some graduation or post graduation geography. Masterji, I want you come because she's a girl. She cannot come to your home. He's not boy. So you please come. I can send you car every day in school, and then you will come teach her, and this car will drop you at Ranawari. And please tell me how much I have to pay." He said, "I will go, but when you say this payment, you know me, I never charge money for." So I think he gave tuition for 2 months, but neither expected or never took any money for teaching. He said, if I will write article, if I will do some extra different work, but for teaching, no money.
Never chance.
Yes,
Great,
I am getting
noble
money
person.
when I teach in school. I get paid for that. But she's like my daughter. She's like my granddaughter. I don't ask for money if I teach my own children. So that kind of person he was. And
Utpalji, I think he had a huge. I heard that he had a huge library. Around 5,000 books were there, and you had some interaction. Any anecdote? You and your grandfather together going to street or having some interaction? Any beautiful anecdote you want like to?
Jugalji, I have hundreds of stories, and I have to tell you that as I said that he was not wasting time. Every day, in an average, he was reading for 2 hours. Every normal day, and on Sunday, on holidays, maybe 4 hours. So you tell me any subject except the pure sciences like physics, chemistry. Otherwise, he had books on history, geography, environment, birds, animals,
Plants.
on every subject he had books. And interesting thing was, he was purchasing books, but at the same time he was getting hundreds of books as gift from authors, different authors, worldwide. People would send, even Japanese scholars, European scholars, American scholars would send him books to just uh, his comments. You read and
Complimentary in his
write, yeah,
comments. Yeah.
yeah, 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 write comments on these books, and so and then also on spirituality. He was reading spirituality, books on spirituality also, and as I have to tell you that he was not knowing Hindi. He he was not he could not write or read Hindi. He could not
Oh,
write or read Sanskrit. But
Devanagari.
he was ace in Persian. He was very good in Arabic. He was very good in Persian, but he was very good in Sharda script.
Arey,
So
wow.
he was reading Sanskrit.
That seems to be a
So,
very oxymoron. I mean,
yeah,
Sharda and Devanagari, they are sister languages, you know. Yeah,
because those days they were not taught Devanagari,
Devanagari.
and so Sharda was tradition. So it was we had nearly 100 manuscripts at home. Even Bhagavad Gita we had in Sharda, and all Kashmir Shaivism texts we had at home was in Sharda. So he was very fluently reading all our texts, all our texts on Hinduism, on Kashmir Shaivism was in Sharda. So he was reading Sharda, and he was also insisting me also and in the family that we should also study Sharda. So
Uh, Utpalji, we'd like to, first of all, let's go into the retrospection a bit. Let's
yeah,
go to his childhood. What you have heard about his childhood, his growing up years, till the time he completed his studies in same as school, and he became a formidable teacher. Let us have a glance at his childhood, the times, yeah, his younger times, for a while.
he was Masterji, as I say, Bab was born in 1883, and
Correct.
his father Narayan Kaul was born in 1858, and my grandfather was born in Zanakadal because that was his original home, and from there when he was 2 years old, unfortunately, my grandfather's mother passed away. So my grandfather, my great grandfather, took him to his grandmother's place, and so he purchased land and constructed house for him. He kept my grandfather with his uncles and grandmother till he was grown up to be in his own home in Motiara Nagar. His studies were in Biscu School. He joined Biscu School, and he was so fortunate that studied under Biscu, and Biscu was his Tyndall Biscu was his teacher,
All
and
right.
then the
Good.
great Shankar Pandit. Great Shankar Pandit was his teacher. Shankar Pandit, I have to mention here, was such a great personality of all times in Kashmir that Bisku writes in his book, "What Shankara does not know is not worth knowing. What
Ah,
Shankara does not know is not
it's
worth
not worth.
knowing regarding Kashmir." So Shankara was his teacher. But after completing his matriculation, I think Eric Biscu, Tyndall Biscu was so impressed with him. He told him, "I will send you to Lahore for 1 year or 1.5 year for teachers training." And
Oh,
so my grandfather went to Lahore and he did his teachers training in Lahore and came back and was appointed as teacher in Biscu school. And
okay.
he became teacher, which was not known as Biscu school at that time. It was known as CMS school, and this CMS school was in Fatehgarh. And later on, this CMS school was shifted to Shekhbag, which is known as Biscu school. Then later on, it was also another branch for the ladies was started for girls. It was
Balance cells.
ladies branch, which is known as now Melanson. And
Melanson.
my grandfather worked in Fateh Kadal. My grandfather worked in Shekhabad Biscu School, and my grandfather worked in girls' school, also in Melanson School. And he was very good friend of Melanson. I have to mention you here that when Melanson School's name was, it was to change the name of Biscu School into Melanson School. Melanson herself came from England, and
Oh,
when she came from England, I think it was year 68 or 69. The first thing she did, first engagement was with my grandfather. When she arrived in Srinagar, next day she came to our home and she insisted, my grandfather, you be with me because there's a big function and you must be with me because I think Melanson and my grandfather had worked together for almost 20 years.
that's
So
wonderful.
my grandfather became teacher in 1905, and his pay was fixed as 5 rupees.
5 rupees.
5 rupees was his pay, and 1905, and he stopped going to school in 1969. That means 64 years he was teaching.
64
His
years.
teaching was basically he was teaching geography. He was also teaching history also, but mainly he concentrated in geography. But with the geography, he started taking interest in environmental sciences. And in environmental sciences, he started discussing with the principal of the school, Tendal Bisku, that I will take children to Zabarwan. I will
Okay.
take children early morning in Dal Lake, or I will take children early morning to Nagin Lake, or I will take them to Marnala to start bird watching. So it was a great experience for children to go and see bulbul and kingfisher and the difference between the cow and div cow, crow, normal crow and the jungle crow, and myna and parrot and children started getting good association with him. Then he started taking them for trekking. And I don't think there is any trekking site or place in Kashmir, Himalaya, where he has not taken students to different parts of Kashmir for trekking and hiking. I have to mention here very important his trekking, which he did from Srinagar to Zaskar. He went from trekking and he took many students. And one of the most important student, he was in ninth class, was Bakshi Ghulam Ahmad, who
Uh,
became the later chief minister, prime minister, because those days was it was called prime minister of Jammu and Kashmir. And it is very interesting when he went to Zaskar, and Bakshi Ghulam Ahmad and a team of uh, five trackers was with him. He told my grandfather, now you have to give me certificate that I behaved very well and I did good service during the trekking. So my grandfather wrote certificate for Bakshi Ghulam Ahmad, that Bakshi Ghulam Ahmad is not only good student, he is a uh, well behaved and strong and did very well in trekking, and he also served teachers and is a good cook, for he can make good food also. So that was the certificate he gave to former Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. But I have to say that Bakshi Ghulam Ahmad had a great respect for my grandfather. I have to give you here one instance. My grandfather had taken students for regatta in Dal Lake, and Bakshi Ghulam Ahmad was chief guest. there. And it was very, very interesting that I don't know, education secretary or director of education was sitting left to Bakshi Ghulam Muhammad, and he told him to move in another chair and told my grandfather to sit next to him. I had
Hey,
that
Guru.
picture in Kashmir because there were so many teachers and it was a big, huge function. And later on told him, I will take you to Ranavari. He said, no, you have a duty, you are prime minister. He said, no, I want blessings from you. I will take you to Ranavari. But my grandfather insisted, no, okay, you can send someone within, I can go, but not you are a prime minister. Prime minister cannot take me to Ranavari. It doesn't
My
look
God.
nice. My blessings are with you. So, with all this environmental thing and trekking and hiking, my grandfather had a great interest in spirituality also. I have to
He
mention
was
this.
a Shavist. He was a Kashmir
And he
Shavism
was a, he
follower.
was a totally dedicated Shavist. He was very much impressed with Utpala Deva Acharya.
Utpal Deva.
Utpala Devacharya, who has composed Utpala Stutravali. And then he was very much,
Abhinav
you
Gupta.
can say his spiritual guru was Abhinav Gupta. In our family, in our tradition was that we had to sit with our grandfather early in the morning. I have done that. My sisters have done. My elder brother has done. And in the evening for 15 minutes to make it to cram what we say that we have to learn all these verses of Utpala's Tutravali. And so I
Super.
can recite even now my grandfather when he would say Agni Shum Ravi Brahma Vishnu Tha Varjan Gama Sarupa Bahurupai. So I could remember hundreds of verses, and it was because of him. And I have my cousin, he is in Canada, and he was more versatile. He would also tell them to do it. And then we say Vyapta Charachar Bhava Vishishi. It was our grandfather who taught us to do like that. And then he
Morning
was narrating
Prajos.
stories. He was telling us the stories. And I want to share one very important story with you.
Please.
We had a great Shivacharya of Kashmir, who can say in the modern times was the founder of, he founded the new, after the Islamic rule, new way of Shaivism, is Swami Ramji. Swami
Miram.
Ramji was in Fatehgarh. And my grandfather told me that I had a dream. I had a dream that Swami Ramji, I go to his ashram in Fatehgarh. He had never gone to his ashram, although it was very near to school. But my grandfather had never gone there, and he was reciting, he was teaching one verse which is very important. It is known as Sangrahen Sutotra. Sangrahin Sukhadukhu Lakshana Ma Pratik Shatamidam Shuno Prabhu. It's a very important verse of Kashmir Shaivism. So, Swami Ramji, in his dream, Swami Ramji was explaining this verse to his disciples. And it was very amazing for my grandfather. I don't know who is this Swami Ramji. He had heard his name, but never seen him, never seen this ashram. Next day, after school, he decided to go. And it was amazing. It was amazing when he went and said namaskar to him, touched his feet, and sat down. And Swami Ramji started Sangrahi in the Sukhadukhulakshanam. He started the same way he had seen in the dream. And after completing this verse, my grandfather told him, Swamiji, I had seen you in the dream and you were explaining the same verse. He said, Mile, so you are Yavani, Tavajom Soptasponsior. Oh, my child, you were not coming to me. So now I
Ashram.
had to come in your dream. And so here you are. So he was a great one gift which my grandfather gave to every grandson. That is the book of Utpala Charya's Utpala
Utpal.
Sutra. And so it was because of this inspiration that we published the first We are first Kashmiri publication house that we published history of Kashmir Shaivism. We published aspects of Kashmir Shaivism way back in 1970s. So it was my grandfather's. It was that he understood, and he was,
Inspiration.
yeah, and it is written by Baljinath Pandit, one of the great scholars on Kashmir Shaivism. And he was saying that Kashmir Shaivism, one day, Kashmir Shaivism will be understood all over the world. And I tell you now, my grandfather's prophecy has come true. There's a
Which is
research going on, 100 universities
around the world.
all over the world, trying to understand what is Trika Shaivism, what is Kashmir Shaivism,
Shastra,
Abhinav Gupta and Vasu Gupta and
Vasugupta, and all
others.
these lineages.
All,
Shambhunatha,
all, all these great scholars,
Acharyas.
great acharyas, and so as once Bisco had a great, what I can say, confidence on my grandfather, great confidence. So it was came to the news
Bisco,
that
Bisco has also written a foreword to his book, one of his
yes,
books.
yes, Bisco has. I can read that for you. Bisco, as I say, that he had a lot of confidence on him. So he called him and said in 1915, 1915, called him
Yeah,
and said that Rabindranath Tagore has come to Kashmir.
oh,
And you have to locate him. He is in a houseboat. And you have to go and meet him.
meet him.
And tell him, invite him on my behalf to come to our school to address the students. So at our home we had pomegranate tree, Dankul. We had pomegranate tree.
Pomegranate.
My grandfather took three pomegranates, and because we were living, as I told you, just on the Mar Canal, so in a small boat, in we call it a small boat. So he went to see Rabindranath Tagore. And then he introduced himself, because those days there was no appointment and he could phone and he could telephone him and say that I am coming. So he sat him and then introduced him. I am a teacher in CMO school, and my principal and we all request you to come and address students. And then offered him pomegranates. And he
Uh,
said that I have heard that there is a lot of apples and
Apple in Kashmir.
almonds and saffron in Kashmir, but I never said you have pomegranates also. So, but he said it is pomegranates in our own garden. So this is I don't have apple tree. I have mulberry tree at my home, and so I offer you this pomegranate tree. So so this conversation started, and then my grandfather's topic on environment and my grandfather's topic on Kashmir Shaivism. These topics was we discussed with more than an hour, and he was also to go to in a lake for a boat ride.
Boat right
So
there.
my grandfather told him, "You can also visit us because I am living very near here." He said, "Okay, I can walk and I can just say hello to you at your
Your
home."
window.
Yeah, and then he said, "I am sorry because my only one lecture is in SP College, and now I invite you to come to SP College to listen to me because I will be speaking on Gitanjali."
Gitanjali.
So,
Yes.
Gitanjali. I will be speaking on Gitanjali. You come. And if you want more interaction with me, I am going to Kir Bhavani also.
Oh,
So I did not know. I don't remember that what interaction he did later on. But he went to Kir Bhavani also, and he went to SP College also to listen to Rabindranath Tagore.
a great
So it was
privilege to be with Gurudev
Yeah,
Rabindranath
it
Tagore.
was really it was a privilege to have one-to-one talk with Rabindranath. Tagore, and then go in the boat with him in the lake and to go to Radhavari. That was something. And I don't remember. Some people say that no, he had visited also our home, but I am not sure because I have read article that somebody, my grandfather, had told somebody that he had come to our place.
It's during his time. I don't know. I mean, he was in the. He's born in the 19th century, mid 19th century. Did Vivekananda also visit Kashmir during his time? It was earlier to that.
No. Swami Vivekananda visited Kashmir earlier, little bit
Earlier than that.
earlier.
And Mahesh Yogi, he has also met Mahesh
Yeah,
Yogi ji.
yeah. It's a very very interesting story.
Yes, please.
My
Please
grandfather,
listen.
I have to say like this. My grandfather, my father was posted in Jammu in 1965.
Okay.
And so during winter, when my grandfather had vacations, so my father told him, "Let us, you please come for these 2 3 months to Jammu." So I remember it was amazing to travel with him to Jammu in bus. And when the rest of the people were tired and rest of the people were talking or sleeping, my grandfather had pen and ink pot and paper and pull one register, and he was writing what he has seen and how the Himalaya is, what kind of trees. And I think by the time we reached Jammu, he had already written 20 pages of register on while going from Srinagar to Jammu. Then in Jammu, he said, "Let us, I want to show you Golden Temple to me and my brother Surendarji." And
Golden
so,
Temple.
my brother, and then we traveled, I traveled with him to Haridwar, to Amritsar. He was very much impressed with Guru Tegh Bahadur and Sikh religion.
Tradition, yeah.
Yeah, so I have to give you this story. When while we were in Haridwar, and one day we decided to go to Rishikesh. And I don't know, somebody, some sadhu came and with folded hand to my grandfather, and he said, I know you, you don't know me, but I know you. And so
Oh,
somebody is waiting for you. I don't know, it was something spiritual. And so he told us, but only thing is you have
esoteric.
to walk 5 kilometers. My grandfather said, no problem, but it was problem for my mother, or my grandmother was also with us. So we went on a hill in Rishikesh, and it was a huge building, and in the building was huge hall, and there were 200 Westerners, 200 white people, foreigners, Americans, and these Europeans. And Maharshi Mahesh Yogi was sitting on a big chair and he was giving lecture. And the moment my grandfather entered and followed my grandfather folded hands and he recited a verse of Kashmir Shaivism. Yatra sosti mayamiti vivet so chandrama prabhatibe sasarvai kapisa vijayate shivratare. And the moment this verse was complete, and Maharshi Mahesh Yogis did like this and said, he closed his eyes and said, "My lecture stops here.
Oh,
My lecture stops here, and now I will give lecture on what he has said."
my goodness.
And I was I was in fourth standard. I still remember we were sitting there for 1 hour and he was giving lecture. He was explaining what is Shivaratri and what is Shiva and what is this, and everybody was looking at my grandfather, what a verse he has said to him, and he had to translate it for 1 hour. And then he accompanied us and told his followers, give them our literature and books, and we came with a big sack of literature of Maharishi Maheshuki. It was amazing meeting, and I cannot forget it for my whole life. And still, I remember this verse which my grandfather recited at Maharishi Mahesh Yogis, and how he explained at that point of time. Then came to we stayed for 1 week, and he explained us the value of Ganga, and then he was telling us that we have to have the Ganga clean at that time. In between, I have to tell you that my grandfather must be the first person in India or even in the world. He was concerned about water pollution 90 years back. He
Right.
was concerned about water pollution, air pollution, and noise pollution. People had not heard about these things. And he
Industrial
was saying,
revolution
one
had
time,
just begun. Yeah.
yeah, noise pollution will be a big problem. My grandfather was ahead of his times. He was a scientist. He understood what is going to happen in future if we don't control, if we don't take care of this mother earth.
Like that.
So,
So, Utpalji, let us first talk about now one of the most important aspects of Samsarchand, Master Samsarchandji. He was an ornithologist and recognized across the globe. He was also honored by this this Watchers Association as a world watcher, and he was also member of many prestigious organizations. First of all, I wanted to know that does this the bird watching pursuit happen right from the beginning in his life, or it later on it developed with the advancement of his service or the job?
I think we were living very near to wetland. We were living, and so even if you go to now, I don't have home now, that is burnt. But if you it will still go in Ranavari where we were living, there are still birds, and early in the morning, late in daytime, you can
Chirp
hear
and all.
so many birds. So
Bird songs.
yeah. So I think it was from his maybe from his childhood, or some passion for birds. And his eye, as if he had a microscope or something, binocular in eyes, he could find these birds. And I think so. It was from his early childhood. But he was very lucky that if he would have in government school, there won't be any encouragement to him.
Yeah.
He was,
Exposure.
my grandfather had exposure because he was teaching in English school, and these English teachers, they had some value for his knowledge, for his adventure, and for his extra studies. And he was not asking them something, moon or something, to give me that I'm doing it. He had a personal passion for it. And I have to say that it must have been from the early school days or early childhood. So because the way his interest was in bird watching, I am lucky. I have been many times with him while he was having bird watching. I still remember one bird watchers group from Britain. British bird watchers came to Kashmir, and they invited him to be with them, and he suggested them, let us go to Anchar Lake. And I think we left our place at 5:30 or 5 in the morning, and we went to Anchar Lake. And then in Anchar Lake, it was amazing. We were in some 3, 4 boats. How slowly he was asking the boatman to move, and then from tree to tree, how he was locating these birds. And he could recognize different kind of kingfisher, as I said, different kind of birds. And the amazing thing was that when he started giving Kashmiri names to these birds. Yesterday, somebody, I think, when you wrote the post, and somebody that he started the one bird was doing tiriu tiriu. So he said it is dof
Tiri-
tiriu. And one amazing bird's
tiri-
name is
tiri.
uh, Duff 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 Tiriu. And one amazing bird's name he kept Humsir, Humsir, and
Ambassador.
so Humsir. And even when I was in school, I knew what is migratory birds. So he was telling us how birds come from
Siberia.
Siberia, and how birds come from Sri Lanka. And then he was explaining us when it is very cold here, Siberia is very cold. So they come from Siberia to this place. And then birds move even up to Sri Lanka. And then there are birds who come from Europe. They come from Europe. How much of distance these birds are moving? And
Westward.
recently, I saw one article where one bird had gone 1,500 miles at a stretch,
100
and
miles.
what an amazing thing it was. And he was like a scientist going with his binocular, like right, like left, and then going in the bushes. It was just amazing. And I hope I had the subject, this bird watching, but my history took me away from this bird watching. And we have nearly 550 varieties of birds in Kashmir. 550. When I say Kashmir, it is Kashmir Himalaya. It is like,
Himalayas.
yeah, it is not pure where we can say valley. It is
Only valley, it is the periphery, outer periphery as well.
around valley. And most amazing thing is that it is not only he was in Srinagar and around Srinagar, he was in high altitude lakes. He went to high altitude lakes, and there also his first interest was to identify the birds and to see. And while others were doing something else, he would say, "Oh, this bird has come here. This bird has come here. Oh, it is egret. Oh, it is this duck. It is from Ladakh. Oh, this one comes from Mansarovar." He could identify which bird is coming from Mansovar, which bird
Yes.
is coming from Siberia, which bird is, oh, this one is from Ladakh. It is coming from Pangong. It is coming from Pangong. It is going for
Such a precision and
yeah,
understanding. Yeah.
perfect. And with the birds, I want to add one more thing. When he was going to these high altitude lakes, Tarsar, Marsar, Gangabal, Vishnu sir, Krishna sir. He was going with the rubber boat, and
Oh,
a rubber boat going in the middle, swimming there, and then seeing the depth of it. And it was icy cold, like small icebergs were in the lakes. So you can understand. I still feel if his interest was so much in environment or in birds or in animals or in flora and fauna
flora and fauna.
and if he was so adventurous, he would have been the first man in Mount Everest if he had the facilities, if the facilities were available. Because in Kashmir, it was not so much of exposure at that point of time. But yeah, he scaled almost main hills there. Few of the Sunset Peak is one. Sunset Peak is one that was Mr. Nandalal Bakaya and Master Samsarchand Kaul had done it first time in 1935. So there were such
It must be Harmukh, Pir Panchal, and other
yeah,
ranges, all the ranges. Yeah.
Harmukh, you see, Harmukh has not been scaled till now. On the base camp of Harmukh, people have gone, but
This
nobody has gone on the top of Harmukh till now. There are reasons for that because it is the moment they go and it is raining or something. It has not been. But there are in my life, I have to say that first time I had in 1976, I got the chance to go with the British trekkers, and it was because of my grandfather. It was the first the National Geographic team coming, and they wanted my grandfather to travel with them, but he was 91. Then they wanted someone in the family. So my father, my uncle, my brother, they had everybody job. I was only a young boy of 21. I think
Oh,
19, 19. So I got the chance to travel with these great travelers
expedition.
expedition. And so I went with them from these seven lakes, uh, from what we call from Sonamarg to Naranag. And we have 7 lakes. It was 8 days trekking. This Krishna Sar, Vishnu Sar, Razabal, Gardasar. And the moment I reached home, it was amazing that my grandfather will be so happy. And I told him, I went to Gangabal and I was alone. Then I jumped in the water in Gangabal, although it was scary.
Chile.
Gangabal, Nandukol, and Kolasar. There are three lakes, 1 kilometer, 1 kilometer, 1 kilometer. And so my grandfather was very happy when they learned that my grandson has got Gangabal at a young age. Bird watching was his number.
Wetlands. I mean, normally, Kashmir had the wetlands. Some wetland areas were there in the earlier times, especially in the times of your grandfather, which were the main areas of wetlands where this migratory birds and other they came in along.
Uh, I think I have to tell you that whole of Kashmir, as you know, was once lake.
Wetland, yeah.
Yeah, and till 16th century, most of the Kashmir was wetland. And if you see the connection, it is a Dal Lake, Small Dal, Big
Acha,
Dal,
small dam,
Nagin Lake,
Manas,
Hokarsar, Anchar, Manasbal, and Walar. So
Waller.
it is
Yeah,
is a line so it was all together. And I think Hokarsar, Anchar, because it's a different kind of uh, wetland, and there was no much traffic, much like in the Dal Lake. There are boats, and so early in the morning when you have to go for bird watching
early in the
you
morning.
have to go early in the morning. Early in the morning, then you can see beautiful birds. But for Anchar and Hokarsar, and now even you can go to one can go to the Waller also. You can have bird watching whole day. You can have, but only thing is one who will go. He must have patience. He must have interest and somebody who has good
Passion,
knowledge, passion and
knowledge.
knowledge
Knowledge is
about
important.
birds. Who is Satut? Who is woodpecker? Who is kingfisher? What is the difference between different kingfishers? There's a white beak kingfisher is there, yellow beak kingfisher is there. So even in bulbul, we have different. In
Bulbul.
Maina, we have different
Miners of this.
varieties, and as such, we have nearly 550 varieties of birds in Kashmir.
He was honored. He have received the great honors by the prestigious organization. He was a member also as world watcher. He was also,
I,
I mean,
yeah,
nominated as a world watcher. Tell us something about his
yeah,
international
I
interaction and international honoring, international decoration on this great personality.
in England, in London, bird watchers made one association for all over the world,
There's a
and
world watcher,
they called it World Watchers,
world
and the
watchers,
World Watchers, and the first one to get this honor was in 1935. His name was Noble Rollin.
okay.
Noble Rollin got the first honor to be called as World Watcher, and second honor was Noble Rollin recommended that Master Samsarchand Kaul of India from Kashmir should be given the honors of World Watchers. So
World
my
watcher.
grandfather got this honor in 1936. But I still remember it was most probably in 1963 or 64 when National Geography Society sent him a huge a kind of certificate and honor that I think my grandfather was most probably the first member of National Geographic Society
Are.
in from 1963 or 64, and all his life he was getting National Geographic magazine as complimentary. Every month we were getting National Geographic, and all friends, relations, neighbors would come because there was no colorful magazine. Though there was no channel, no television those days, this National Geographic was one of the most important. And when they came and interacted with them, and this news was announced by All India Radio. In the you must, and everybody must be knowing, all those who are elderly, our elder generation. That news was in the evening at 9. All India Radio News, and in the All India Radio News they said that Master Samsarchand Kaul has been honored by National Geographic Society to be its member, and then Royal Canadian Geographic Society also honored him.
Honored
But
him as a member.
I may add here that he was happy with his work. And I don't know, his students were chief ministers, his students were great people, but how they missed to recommend him for any Padma Shri or Padma Bhushan or anything. But anyway, I
It
am
doesn't
thankful.
matter. To such a
Yeah, yeah,
great
it
personality, it
doesn't, it
doesn't
doesn't
matter.
matter. I am. I organized. We organized. Our family organized a program on our grandfather in Jammu, so that some 4 years back, so that people, present generation, must know about what he did. And it was a surprising that we got a big, long letter from Dr. Nasir,
Oh,
and it was
great
I am
man.
so now peace be upon soul, that he wrote that he was one of the greatest legendary personalities of our Kashmir, but he also wrote in the letter why these people here in India or the government missed him to honor him or recognize him, but people love him, respect him so much, all
He's a
across
he's a
all
he's a world he's a world phenomena. His
so
name is mentioned in the
we are,
chronicles.
we are
What would Padam Shri do to him? I mean, now Padam Shri and other things, they have now become political tools, because he is much ahead. Such personalities are much ahead of these
I,
decorations and these rewards. His
I
books.
have to
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have to add here that yesterday only I came to know that Himachal Central University has started a course, and there's a special course on Master Samsarchand Kaul and his environmental and bird watching activities.
That's
What he
wonderful.
did, it's a chapter. And I have to add one more thing here, that here is a book, The Man
The
and the
man
Mountain.
and the mountain. Yeah.
Mountain, written by Imtiaz Khan. And I am so thankful to Imtiaz Khan. He has changed the name of, he has not, he has written a novel on a mountain
Oh,
man. It is on everything about a Samsarchand Kaul. It is a novel dedicated to him.
I said it's
Dedicated to him.
dedicated to him. It's
It
dedicated
is,
to him.
he, he has, you can say, in a camouflaging thing, he said, he has not put the Samsarchand Kaul name. He has put some other name, and it's a novel. But whole story is about Master Samsarchand Kaul. Whole story is about him. I, as I get so many stories, I can share so many stories, but one story I want to tell you that Mr. Aga Ashraf.
Agashto.
Aga Ashraf, he was
Great.
commissioner education also. He was once principal of B.Ed college. In fact, his five brothers, Aga Ashraf, Aga Inayat, Aga Nasir, all these brothers were students of my grandfather. And so one day, Aga Ashraf told my father, send you message that I want to pay respect to my teacher. I want to come to your home. So said, okay, why not? Please come. And I remember I was at that time there because every day somebody or the else would come to say
To
namaskar
salute,
or hello to my
pay reverence.
grandfather, or somebody would interview him, and so when he came and he took his shoes in our angan, in the compound, took out his shoes, and then in a big voice said, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Sakshat,
Devo
Maheshwara, Guru Dev
Maheshwara,
Jagat Tasmai Shri Guruve Nama,
Gurve
and
Nama.
both outside his home, outside our home, then went inside, then touched his feet. Although I have to say that he is a Muslim, but he didn't care. And he respected him, touched
So
his
people
feet,
are very open-minded, and level of respect and level of love and affection he had.
and respectfully gave the guru's honor to him. I have so many anecdotes, and one more anecdote I want to tell you that that Bisku family lived in Kashmir almost for 70 years. First was his father, uh, Tendal Bisku. Then he must have been in Srinagar, Kashmir for 60 years. Then his son was for another maybe 20 to 30 years. His name was Eric Biscu. So my grandfather worked with both, with Tendel Biscu and Eric Biscu, both. So Eric Biscu came to our home, I think it was 1973, because he had left there from New Zealand. So after 52, 53, they left. And they were coming after 5, 6 years, after 10 years, they were visiting Kashmir. And when they were visiting, it was a must to come to our home. And my grandfather was bedridden for 7 years. Unfortunately, something happened. He was in Waller Lake. I had not told you. He has crossed Waller Lake seven
Yeah, yeah.
times.
I wanted to ask that question. That I wanted to know
Yeah.
what was his age. What was his age when he crossed the Wooler Lake? Because Wooler in those times was really very gigantic. Now it's
He,
shrunk. Yeah,
I think he would have been 20 to 35 when my grandfather crossed Waller seven times. And he crossed
7 times.
seven times Waller Lake and 20 times Dal Lake. 20 times
My
Dal
goodness.
Lake.
And
He
Wooler,
went to, he, he
what was the I mean the length of the Wooler he swam across?
Waller is 7 to 10 kilometers.
10 kilometers.
And and sometimes it is 15 kilometers also. And this Dal is 3.5, and you do the recross. It does the recross. It is 7 kilometers. He went to trekking Mahadev. You know Mahadev in Zabarwan.
Mahadev.
Mahadev
Zabarwan.
34 times. He went to Amarnath 16 times.
Oh,
So coming back to
great
this
lover of nature, great trucker. Yeah.
Eric story. Uh, he came
Yeah, you were
and
telling about.
yeah, I was telling about the yes, Bisco family, and he said when he was sitting having tea and he was talking to us, talking to my grandfather also. Then he whispered, "What can I do for him? Can I get a transistor for him?" I said, "We have radio. There is no need of transistor. What can I do? I can't think. What can I do?" And then he touched his mattress. He said, "No, I want to get some better mattress for him." You'll be amazing. Eric Biscu was 75 at that time. Next
Right.
day, Eric Biscu is coming with Dunlop mattress on his shoulder.
My
And because everybody knew in Kashmir who is Eric Biscu, all students, because Biscu was a phenomenon, Biscu school and Biscu,
was a
he
very
was principal for 20 years there. So, like a procession, he was coming to our home, and he was not giving, everybody was telling me, "Give this mattress to us, we will carry it." He said, "No, I want to do good karma. I want to, you don't know how inspirational personality is." And then he gave this mattress as a gift, and next day was amazing. 17 people from Biscu family came to our home. 17.
oh my god.
Eric Biscu and wife. Eric Biscu's son, Hugh Biscu, and his wife. His Eric Biscu's daughter and his husband. Then their grandchildren, 17 people. And then a grandfather told them to remove shoes because in Kashmiri homes, we don't go inside with shoes. So
Yes.
everybody removed shoes. And when they were sitting in front of my grandfather and told him, touch feet, touch. British, they don't. These Western people don't touch feet. But
They
it
don't
was
touch me. There's no tradition. They're like that.
and he said to them, he has worked with me for more than 20 years, and he has worked with your great grandfather 40 years. He is the amazing personality of Kashmir and of humanity. And so everybody came, they were children from 10 years, from 15 years, 20 years, touching feet, and then they wrote a joint letter that
Right.
on behalf of Bisco family, on behalf of humanity, we thank you for your great service to humanity, for education, for environment. And everybody signed that. Everybody's,
That's so
all
good.
17 family members signed it and presented this
It's a great honor.
letter of appreciation to him. And it was like a Padma Shri. It was more than Padma Shri. It was such an inspiring thing. But I have to say you something which is very tragic, that I lost everything. We lost everything in Kashmir. We lost all these treasure. I think his correspondence with head of the states, his correspondence with great scholars, with eminent personalities of world, his appreciation, his all certificates of World Watcher, this National Geographic Society, Royal Canadian Geographic Society, all this was burned.
Right.
And the way he had collected fossils. And one thing, Jugalji, I have to tell you, he had one of the greatest herbariums. He had collected 750 plants and flowers from all high altitude mountains and hills in Kashmir.
And
So
there was
he
a documentary on Doordarshan for that.
Yeah, in 1976, he passed away in 1977. It was good. In 1976, Doordarshan made documentary on Master Samsarchand Kaul, and it was a great personality of the Dr. Sushil Razdan. Dr. Sushil Razdan's father was
Satlal
teaching.
Razdan.
Satlal
Satlal
Ji
Razdan.
Razan was teacher on Biscu school and he was his student also. So the way he explained, interviewed him. He said, "I am so lucky that Doordarshan gave me this chance to interview him." And in the interview, when there was a whole team of Doordarshan making this documentary, and they were telling him, "Masterji, now you have to speak for we ask you the question, you have to reply it for 2 minutes. You have to reply it for 1 minute." So he was closing his eyes and he was saying, "Okay, what is the question?" So they were saying, "Masterji, when you went to Tarsar Marsar,
Arsar
what was
Marsar.
your what
There's
was
a
your
beautiful
first
photograph
impression?
out there. Yeah.
How was the cold and how you jumped in the water and how was your rubber boat at that time? What do you want to say about that?" He said, "Just give me 10 seconds." And then he started saying, and all of a sudden he stopped. And so the director, who Ashok Jailkhani was
Yelkani ji.
there, he said, "Bob, you continue." He said, "No, you told me 1 minute. 1 minute has gone." So, so he said, "One
Such
minute has
was his
gone." It
level of
was
alertness and wit
he
also.
was he was 91 at that time, 92. And he was so mentally he was alert. But
Agile.
his problem was while he was doing Waller cross,
Bullet.
some water had gone in his nose and eye, and so he had some problem in left eye, and later on, in old age, he lost the eyesight because of that Waller cross thing, which
Oh,
the water had gone in the eye, and because of
so sad.
that, he became bedridden. But mentally, he was so alert. He was mentally he was totally.
He has also traveled to Burma from Calcutta. I mean, I had heard about this thing. Tell us something about that part.
It's very interesting. It is very interesting that
I think every aspect here is interesting.
Bisco
Nothing other than
uh,
a great interest
Bisco
to you all three.
Bisco told him that you should go to. I recommend you. you go to Afghanistan, you go to Kabul, and you also go to Calcutta. You travel in train, and then you travel also in ship.
Oh,
So they went to Kabul in Afghanistan, and then they went in train from Amritsar or from Pathankot, because train was from Pathankot.
Pathankot, from Pathankot. Yeah.
So they went to Calcutta, and staying a few days in Calcutta, they took ship to Myanmar, what was Rangoon. That time it was known as
Rangoon.
Rangoon in Burma. And so they spent some 10 days there. And the chief, what we can say, the who was the priest or bishop of because they were from the Christian school, same school.
Yes.
So the chief of that bisco had written that my three teachers, they were three teachers are coming. And so the chief of the Christian missionary in Rangoon welcomed them and invited them for dinner, and
Okay.
dinner and or tea party. But the situation at that time, it was a different kind of world. They said thank you very much. They didn't accept the invitation.
Oh,
They said were there, and they said we can have fruit and talk to them, but never interdined with him for lunch or for any tea or anything. But I think they had some fruit or dry fruit. So they had a good sightseeing in Burma. They went to see the Buddhist monasteries and the life, and they went to certain libraries, and they visited some schools also in Rangoon. And to cut it short, when they come back, and the Biscu told him, how was the trip? They said, trip was fantastic. It was very nice. He said, but you have insulted me. Biscu told them, you have insulted. You went to Rangoon and met the one of the chief of our Christian mission in Rangoon, but you didn't have tea or lunch with him. He was not happy, and he had written that I met your teacher who were pandits like Pathans, because
Pandits like
all
Pathan.
three were 6 feet tall. So there's a pandits like Pathans. They visited me, but I didn't feel it good. They didn't have tea or they didn't have lunch or dinner with us. My grandfather told Biscu that I am working for last 25 years with you. Have I ever had a tea with you? Have I ever had a lunch or dinner with you? If we will have, you are our boss, you are our friend, you are our inspiration. If we will have lunch, dinner, or anything, we will have with you. So this time, this generation will not understand this. That in Kashmir, it was accepted this thing, that Muslims and Hindus were friends. They were like brothers, but they were
Those
not
times were like that. Yeah, good one.
interdining. They were not interdining. That was a different kind of world. Everybody had respect, and everybody was understanding of that thing. And even my grandfather, who was with all his life for 60 years working with Western people, working with foreigners, but never had tea or, oh, maybe sometimes milk is okay, but not food of milk and fruit is okay. But I have to, Jugalji, give you one more um,
Yes, please, please. We are
explanation.
heading for the closure of time, but we'll
Okay,
just
okay.
have one, two anecdotes. Yeah.
What I have to tell you that whenever there was a foreign team or some foreign Western people, my grandfather would invite them for high tea. And this high tea was always at 4. And then he would make, it was a special kind of pakora. You know this, what we call squash,
Squash.
squash, flowers.
Alaposh.
Alaposh. Kashmiri we
Alposh.
call
Alposh.
Alaposh.
Alposh.
Alaposh pakori and mats.
Uh,
and damalu, but not damalu, not with the chilies, with the yellow turmeric and
Turmeric. This
turmeric, and not rice but paratha, and most important was shufta.
Shupta.
You
What's
know,
that?
shufta is a, sweet. It's the dry fruit sweet of Kashmir. It's a cheese. It is dry fruits in sugar sauce, and it's a very very special. And I was always happy that some foreigners are coming. After that, when they will leave, we will have shufta to eat. It's a uh, not everybody would make it. It was a very very well son-in-law or something. So
Special guest arrives.
and when the foreigners would come to our home, three people, two people, or five people, my grandfather would receive them, and then my grandmother. Grandmother will be on the left side. My grandfather would shake hand, then my grandmother, Taranga and Peran, but she would shake hello,
Shake
hello,
hand.
hello. And after that would be my father or my uncle, and we grandchildren will be on one side. He would give great respect to his wife.
Women.
Wife was
And
women. Wife was not sitting at in another room. No, she would be whole conversation. Although she would not understand bird watching or environment, but she would be sitting and she would say yes. And my grandfather would take great interest in women education. And my aunties, my father's sisters, my they are the first to go to women's college. They
oh, that's
were
so
the
great.
first in
Emancipation.
Kashmir go from Ranavari to women's college, because he said women is much more important for education. So in our family, it was a great inspiration for others. They would see when the ladies were sitting at home, they were the only two sisters going to women's college, having education with
That's
rest
so
of them.
wonderful, Utpalji. Let's talk briefly about his books. I think his books are very valuable. Let's talk something about his books, his articles, what he has written, and are they available right now in the publishing houses? I mean, what were they all about, and how they were written, and who read it, and where they were recorded? Did it go across the libraries across the world? And what was it? What were its values and virtues of these books?
Jugalji, I have to tell you, I think largest sold books about Kashmir on Kashmir before 90 must be Master Samsarchand Kaul's books. And because they were the authentic books,
Original,
the
honest,
original. My
pure.
grandfather wrote first book in 1934, and it was holidaying in Kashmir.
Holiday in Kashmir.
Holidaying in Kashmir. How to holiday in Kashmir for Western people. Then he wrote Birds of Kashmir in 1939.
Birds of
Then
Kashmir.
he Birds of Kashmir in 1939. Then he wrote Beautiful Valleys of Kashmir, Beautiful Valleys
And
of
Ladakh.
Kashmir.
And
Then
Ladakh.
Beautiful Valleys of Kashmir was first edition. First edition was Beautiful Valleys of Kashmir. Then he added Beautiful Valleys of Kashmir and Ladakh. Then came Srinagar and its environs. Then came Pahalgam and its
Pahalgam and
environs.
its own.
Then he wrote one book in Hindi about Kashmir, and
Hindi.
he wrote Pahalgam. Then he wrote on Kheer Bhavani. It was the first book on Kheer Bhavani and Shankaracharya, is written by my grandfather, and which must have been sold in thousands. And I think Beautiful Valleys of Kashmir and Ladakh, mainly 15 to 20,000 copies before 90. Birds
That's
of
good.
Kashmir, two, three editions. But
Did he get? He must have got the huge royalties also, or other things.
I have to
Liberation.
give you one family secret, and
Yes,
that
please.
my grandfather would say that for marriages, all the marriages I have done in the family are because of the publishing of books. The money
Correct.
which came
Great.
from the publishing of books, because these were the only books available in market, at airport or in tourist center or in Hind bookshop or in Kashmir bookshop or
Abroad
any.
also.
Yeah, Yeah.
abroad, Europe, America, and other
Yeah,
countries,
yeah, yeah,
libraries,
yeah. His books,
universities. Yeah.
and so I feel so sorry that everything was burnt in 1990. Our home
We
was
don't have.
burnt.
Where can we locate these books nowadays?
Now I am. You will be happy to know that we three professors, Dr. Raina, M.K. Rana of zoology. He passed away uh, last year. Uh, he worked for 3 years updating the birds of Kashmir in a modern way. And then one BL Professor BL Kaul and also Professor PL Kaul. Three professors worked on this book, and this book is coming this year. It may take 4 months, and it's an enlarged book. It is an updated book with 100 color pictures. It will be a great contribution, and it will be a great homage to my
It is.
grandfather.
It is.
That
It
that
is. It
after
has some.
so
It
many
has
years,
some
so many
content
years,
from the other books as well.
yeah.
It has some
And
content from
I
the
will be
early.
updating Beautiful Valleys of Kashmir because I wanted to update these books and put it in right perspective. And one more thing which I said, National Book Trust of India (NBT) requested my grandfather in 1963-64 that write something in Kashmiri because my grandfather could write in Kashmiri also. So he wrote पांच चीज पांच अजीब चीज अजूबातन हंद पांच पांच चीज अजूबातन हंद पांच पांच चीज which was published in thousands in Kashmiri, and it was about 5 birds, 5 flowers, 5 butterflies, five
Uh,
animals, 5 plants, 5 trees.
Rhythmic.
So it was for the children, small
Right.
children in Kashmiri. So I will have to take this responsibility
Flowers,
to
birds, and butterflies. Flowers, birds, and butterflies. Title of the book.
animals in Kashmir, the five
Animals.
animals and
Animals.
5 trees. Just an introduction for these children.
He had a relationship. It is said that Vikram Sarabhai was closely connected with Samsarchand Kaul Saab. And tell us something about briefly, because now we are running out of time. We're hardly nearing 2 hours are
Vi-
passed. Yeah, Vikram
Vikram
Sarabhai.
Sarabhai, Vikram Sarabhai had come to Kashmir, and by chance he had seen birds of Kashmir and beautiful valleys of Kashmir. And so he
Okay.
invited my grandfather, and he had conversation. And Vikram Sarabhai was amazed that in Kashmir, somebody who talks about birds and who talks about environment, and he was totally impressed with him. And so they started writing letters. I had so many letters of Vikram Sarabhai at home in Kashmir, and
So
I
good.
feel so much of correspondence between these two people. And so then he started coming every year to Kashmir. And once my grandfather told him that you have this in Bombay, in Trombay, and in other places, why don't you do something in Kashmir? And he looked at him and he said, I will get back to you. Then from Mumbai, he wrote to him, I will come, but you identify the place. Where we will start the station. So I don't know whether my grandfather had already thought about it or what had happened. And so they traveled together to in Gulmarg, and they started one station in Gulmarg and one station in Zokra, in very near to Kashmir University. So it was a little contribution which people don't know about my grandfather, how he silently worked
Was associated
on
with.
this project.
That was wonderful. I mean, it was really enthralling, enchanting. I wanted this thing to continue, but the scope of time and scope of the program is limited. We cannot. We could have gone for hours together because the topic is very good and you are spoken in very native and lucid way because you are connected to him as a grandson. Tell me something a bit of I wanted to ask. You have a very big clan. Master Samsarchand's family has a very big clan now. And do you ever get together and celebrate your grandfather's achievements or meet or anything like that?
My grandfather had one sister and
Okay.
four brothers. So they were five brothers and one sister. And my grandfather was the eldest one. I cannot tell you how much respect all these brothers and sisters and their children and their great grandchildren and their great grandchildren
Great.
have about my grandfather. And so it is when he was living, he was like God for everyone. He was not only mine, he was for everyone. And my grandfather, when I told you he was on bed, there were 10 people every time. My sister, elder sister Urmila, she was ready if anything. My other sister Kamishuri, she was coming with the shaving. My other sister Asha would come with the milk. And my one sister Vijanti, she would recite Upanishad to him. So it's a battery of people trying to help, or he never felt alone, because this is a big problem with the elder people this time.
Older age is nowadays, yeah, it's a very miserable
Nobody
thing.
is talking to them. But these our relations and friends, that it was overwhelming, because everyone was trying to sit with him and talk with him, and he was and celebrate. And I you don't have time, I would have said what how was the grandfather's birthday. It was a great feast. It was a great festival like thing. All relations and friends and
No,
everybody would come and celebrate the birthday of my grandfather. And it was grandfather's birthday was on the day when it is called Zangatrai in Kashmiri. So the
Zantra,
all
yes.
mothers, ladies have to go to their own mother's place. But
Paternal home.
my mother and auntie had never chance, because they had celebration at our home. And me, my brothers, my sisters, my all cousins, when we introduce ourselves, we slowly say, I say, my father's name is Lukesh Kaul, but my grandfather is Master Samsarchand Kaul. So we proudly still feel, and we get a lot of respect
Do you
because
still do it? Do you still do it? Do you still gather
I still
sometimes,
do it.
give a
I still
regard?
do it.
Yeah.
I still do it. And if somebody doesn't know him, I tell him to Google. Something will come out of something will come.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. Thank
And
you very
and
much.
And
Apna,
one more thing I want to tell you, it was
yes, please.
unique that his birthday and he passed on the same day. 20,
Yeah, this
his
is
yeah, on 21st of March, 1883, he was born, and on 21st of March, 1977, he passed away.
that's great. He's a Caspian by English solar system is a Caspian between Aquarius and Libra,
Yeah,
Aquarius and Pisces.
yeah,
So Aquarians, they are always they think ahead, 1,000 years, 500 years. So that is there are certain traits connected with this, this kind of size. Anyway, that was so wonderful, so enriching, so enlightening session about this great legend, great son of Kashmir, great institution, invisible, encyclopedia, a phenomenon, a bird watcher, respected and loved by everyone. I think today he would have been much, much displeased to see those wetlands have shrunk. Buller is not the same. It is no more the second largest lake of Asia. Dull has shrunk. Wetlands have changed. Direction of these migratory birds have changed. I think he would have been pained today to see all
pain,
these
pain,
things and a
pain.
hatred in society and all these aspects. But then again, before going, I would like you to say something, some wisdom in some totality, convey some wisdom that you perceived in your grandfather to our youngsters and to the diaspora and to the overall humanity. Because he was basically these personalities, they are not parochial, they don't remain to the limit confines of a community. They are for the world, they are for the entire humanity. Say a line or two you want to.
I want to I want to take my grandfather's message first to Kashmir, then to rest of world, and then to whole of humanity. Please take care of your environment. Please take care of your water bodies in lakes. And as Jugalji said, we have to take care of Dal Lake, we have to take care of Nagin Lake, we have to take care of Waller Lake, we have to take care of Achar, Hokarsal, Tarsar, Marsar. These are our, this is a lifeline.
Lungs.
Without these water bodies, Kashmir won't be Kashmir. And so, in the rest of the India, I appeal we have to take care of our water bodies. We have to take care of Holy Ganga. We have to take care of Jamuna and rest of the rivers and lakes. Then at the same time, we have to take care of air pollution. And we have a phenomenal problem if we don't take care of air pollution. And at the end, there must be a big campaign for noise pollution. It
Sound
was good
pollution.
time my grandfather said 80 years back that in future there will be problem of noise pollution. Noise pollution will be big issue.
That is
It
true
will be a
for today.
question of depression for people if we don't care for this noise pollution.
Thank you very much, Utpalji.
Thank
It
you,
was
thank you.
really your magnanimity. You came. We are so much enlightened and thrilled. I think this program goes to the archives. Today, I'm seeing in the main group of Facebook, public group, there are equal comments, and then there are comments into the Facebook page as well. Because Facebook page earlier people never, went there, but most of the people have gone to the Facebook page, and I wish that our YouTube channel is also there. Our these all materials of great legendary Samsarchand Kaul is available on the YouTube, on the Facebook page, and on the Facebook public group. Whenever whosoever wants to witness it, because it's a very very close encounter between a grandson and a grandfather, who's a legend, who's an institution. Thank you very much, Utpalji. All the
Thank you very
best,
much, sir.
best of
Thank you
best
very much.
wishes and good luck.
Thank you very much. Best wishes. God bless you. God bless you.
Thanks a lot. So that was Utpalji, the very well known personality, the international coordinator of Global Kashmir Pandit Forum, Diaspora, and a great publisher who's contributed a lot for this community and literature, Kashmir's literature, ancestral literature, and other things. And he very lucidly and very natively and very anecdotal fashion conveyed all the narratives about this great man. These aspects would have remained buried and nobody would have known about them. So we are very thankful to him that he came forward and he just touched all these subjects. We need to, as a youngsters, as a diaspora, as other people, because now community we are all Vasudev Kutum. The entire world has become one community. Such personalities we need to read. We need to read its books. We need to read it on the Google and try to research on such personalities, because these personalities are very rare and we are very proud of them. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful again to be with all of you on our 59th historic show. See you again next Sunday at 7 p.m. That's all for today. Thank you very much and good night.